What is gang stalking and T-social control? Gang stalking is a framework of social control of group of people, and this framework can be used by any system, even non-government system, to control group of people without doing anything illegal in the control framework. From this fact, things are very clear that whoever wants to gang stalk they don't want to do anything illegal as a part of gang stalking. Gang stalking allows to inflict enormous pain to the without doing anything illegal, and gang stalking is planned in such a way the actions involved in the gang stalking are designed considering the loopholes in the law. Often the technology and high-tech machines are used to introduce and amplify the pain, negative emotions, anger, fear, aversion, feel helpless, etc. And the gang stalking is used to anchor the pain and negative emotions to the aspects of life, community, environment, person, time, objects, so that the perception of all the aspect of life is turned negative. Also, the occurrence of gang stalking is planned so that the perception of aspects of life remains negative permanently and is never given time for cure. Once the stalkers are successful in turning the perception of the T develops mood disorder. And for the PERP programmed anchors when occur normally in life will trigger a bad mood for the T even if it is a normal life occurrence and not the GS event. And the T views all the person who displays this gesture or anchor as a PERP because of the influence of the forced mood disorder. For example, as a part of GS, perps artificially cough and anchors cough with aversion. And after turning the T's perception and introducing the mood disorder for a given set of anchors, even if a non-PERP person coughs, then the T gets the bad mood. I hate when someone coughs like that. For every occurrence of programmed anchors, if the anchors are displayed in normal life, then the T gets bad mood, and these anchors act as triggers for the bad mood. With all those bad mood in life, the majority of T's life is spent thinking about the GS and other problems. Irrespective of who does the gang stalking, we have to analyze the methods and characteristics of gang stalking to have a better understanding of who does it. Now we shall analyze characteristics of gang stalking system. What are the motivations to form the gang stalking system? Gang stalking is used by the system government, like big system, as virtual jail for the gang stalking helps in achieving the following factors. 1. By the gang stalking, the given T can be isolated, form the community, and create barrier for the T with the community. 2. By the gang stalking, the T loses the confidence in the community and fears to do anything dramatic or revolutionary or do anything that will impact the community. 3. By the gang stalking, the T thoughts can be starved to only think about the problem of gang stalking, and other life issues are thought or planned least. 4. Gang stalking spoils the ego identity and confidence of the T, and don't allow the T to reach a successful life. If the T achieves successful life or influential life, then the T cannot be controlled. Consider a case where if the government know that a particular person will compulsorily involve in crime or antisocial activities, then the government can confine them. For example, psychopathic person will compulsorily harm public, and this type of people will be confined. But in the case of person with narcissistic or sociopathic psychology, or something similar in concept, the government cannot confine them, because the probability that the person with such psychology involving in antisocial activities varies from person to person. And the probability that the person will involve in antisocial activities depends on numerous factors. If the government still confines the person, then it is like punishing an innocent person for the sole reason that the government suspects the person who may involve in illegal activities, who didn't commit anything illegal. Similar to the above concept, if the government or system who wishes to control a person who didn't involve in crime, then gang stalking is only the way to do it, and this rationalizes the use of gang stalking on Ts. What are the salient features of the gang stalking system? Control across countries. We have learned that GS even get followed offshore and across the countries. Who would have such power to GS across countries? Definitely an organization with some volunteers with limited fund cannot do it. The organization with funds comparable to the national schemes and salaried perps who can dedicate their time for GS available across the stable economic countries can only do GS across shores. System has the power for very long duration. If the gang stalking is done by the non-governmental agency, then system which does the gang stalking or social control doesn't have any legal liability to perform gang stalking actions, which are at least most of the time is legal, but falls within the loopholes of the law. If the gang stalking system doesn't have any legal liability, then the gang stalking can involve criminal or illegal actions and can escape after doing it. If the system doesn't have legal liability, then instead of doing gang stalking, in which the law loopholes are considered, and it is so complex, they could easily kill the T, instead of doing the GS all along the T life 365 days a year. If the perps can kill the T at their convenience, then why not kill the Ts immediately instead of gang stalking them and do attacking them for several years and then kill them? If the perps kill the T and can cover it up, why not kill the Ts immediately instead of giving so much trouble and then kill them later? What type of the system can and wants to gang stalky and trouble the T for so much time or years? The system is dedicated and involved in work for 24/7. How the T family members agree to take part in the GS session? What reason is given for them? Definitely not all of the family members will agree for money as the reason. Does the perps threaten the T family members to take part on the GS, or what could be the reason? When the perps meet the family members, do they watch the life of entire T family members before approaching them? And who can do it? Consider a T going to a shopping mall and perps managers are planning for a GS in the shopping mall. To perform GS in the shopping mall, they require people to perform GS. Not just one or two can do GS in a shopping mall. Now to perform GS, they can request people in the mall to GS, which requires time. By the time the PERP managers request each and everyone, the T will finish shopping and leave the mall, or the PERP managers can mobilize the part-time gang stalkers to mall from volunteers group who know how to gang stalky and can do gang stalking with less supervision. If the perps or gang stalking planners want to perfectly determine the outcome of gang stalking, they should involve trained gang stalkers who has prior gang stalking experience. And if this case is true, if there are part-time gang stalkers, and if they are trained prior, then GS activity is pre-planned and well-managed activity with huge fund. Even if the funds are available for GS activity, how many of the perps will be willing to dedicate their time for GS at time convenient for the PERP managers? And how the GS managers mobilize or collect the trained gang stalkers from different location and move them to the shopping mall where GS activity is planned. The system is well funded and the fund magnitude is comparable with the national scheme's budget. The perps who are part of the GS system or social control easily manages to turn the public against the T for the GS session. Why the public turns so easily, and what reason is explained for the public to make them to agree for the perps request in the T stalking? Does public turn because the GS session involves nothing illegal? Mostly it involves coughing, bumping into the T, or other simple inconvenience. Or the public is given money to take part in the GS session and stalky the T. If the perps give money to take part in the GS session, then who funds the GS sessions, which happens 365 days a year? And what is the magnitude of the money funded for gang stalking the T? And who can fund so much money? What is the magnitude of the fund received by the T gang stalking system? How and from whom the T gang stalking system receives fund? Considering the points discussed above, the amount magnitude of fund required for gang stalking is huge and depends on severity of T control. The money required for gang stalking increases. If the GS manager wants to organize the gang stalking activity for every day, then they has to employ at least 100 for a medium severity control of T. How much is the average living cost of a PERP getting involved in the GS? Say the average living cost of $4,000 for a month. And per day living cost will be around $130. Since the perps are normally part-time workers, then the cost will be less, so let us consider the cost is $100 per day per PERP involved in the gang stalking. So for 100 perps per day the cost will be $10,000, and per year cost would be $3,600,000, $3.6 million per year only for part-time workers. This cost is excluding the professionals like psychologists, public department resources, GS managers, GS perps mobilizers, cost for transportation, cost of the machines in the case of DO, V2s or V2K and mine control, and their operation cost, and cost for research for GS and aiding technologies. What is the cost for gang stalking across countries? What will be the total cost? What is the maximum money any non-governmental organization can collect? Will any non-governmental organization can fund the gang stalking activity, which is so huge? Can the huge fund collection for gang stalking activity can happen covertly, and won't such a huge fund transfer get notified? If the government funds GS, then whom the fund is allocated to? Is it done covertly? How the government is able to covertly allocate such a huge sum for only control or gang stalky group of people, and able to cover it up? If the GS is legal, then social control will follow the same structure of the judicial system. In a judicial system, court is an entity independent of the police system. The court is responsible for analyzing the truth of the case and provide verdict which is independent of the investigator's opinion. Police system is responsible for investigating the case and to file the case against the concerned person, and perception of the police is always pessimistic to suspect everyone possible. Similarly, the GS system, if legal, should also have an entity which is independent and decide whether to control and how much to control the T. And for this discussion, let's call it as GS management system. And the GS system also should have an entity to screen the public by conducting interview covertly in the name of job interview to find the required psychology in the population. Let's call this entity as GS Operations Group. GS Operations Group. After finding the required psychology, the profile and interview logs are given to the GS management system. The GS management system, after evaluating the logs and characteristics of the T, decide whether to control the T and how much to control based on the severity of the control required. Note that the severity of the control required determines the amount pain to be inflicted on the T and GS frequency for every day or month. After the verdict of the GS management system, the social control of the T is implemented by an entity whose aim is to plan the control for every day, decide which type and amount of control. Apart from social control, the T is often re-evaluated for change in the psychology. Who does gang stalking? T stalking are not some crooks harassing the T for some mean reason, but the stalking are carefully planned by a team of expert psychological experts and executed by carefully selected and trained agents. It is very clear that the stalking involves psychological concepts like NLP, etc., and the stalking is carefully planned by the experts in the psychological field. T stalking is planned such a way the output extreme states of the T are observed carefully to find which NLP anchor or harassment works with the target T and used in the next T stalking. This suggests the stalking is organized as a part of the major activity that involves systematic communication, organization, planning, execution, and with unlimited funding. T stalking are planned such that the stalking doesn't leave any evidence or cannot be accepted as evidence, at least law and enforcement does not want to accept the evidence. The stalking and other assault are designed such that they does not leave evidence. Stalking organization is concerned about the evidence which can be produced judicially. What if it is able to produce evidence which can be accepted judicially? Will the system government, if part of stalking, will try to cover it up? Why any T is not able to produce one? Or is the government covering up the produced evidence? Thinking about all the possible motive behind the stalking, the worst thing that could be the motive of the stalking could that the motive being legal, and we T being unable to understand or unable to get the information or reason behind the motive. If the motive is legal, what could be the possible legal system that urge for harassment of the Ts? Is the system stalking organization is paranoid enough to commit stalking on innocent, thinking that the innocent T has threat to the organization or system? If the motive is legal, then the real motive is not the harassment of the Ts, but it is a form of systematic control of the T's life. Why should a T be controlled? Is T is really a threat to the system? The stalking organization seems to have unlimited access to the places of their interest and access the places used by the T to gang stalk them. Only an organization with rights to access a place judicially can take control of the place, and people in the accessed place should obey the organization's judicial order. Any other organization without a judicial order cannot take control of a place used for T stalking. The organization involved in the T stalking could be a legal organization with unlimited power, since they get support from local law and enforcement, or since the local law and enforcement doesn't accept the T complaints. Amnesty International and other UNO does not help the T, and Amnesty International cannot interfere T stalking only if the T stalkers and T stalking is legal. Who take part in T gang stalking? Though all the general public is convinced by the perps to take part in the slaking of the T, there is a closed group of the people who normally take part in the gang stalking. Except for the intervention officers, like the director or manager, all the perps involved in the GS are part-time workers for the GS system. This part-time workers will have a main profession other than GS work, and also involved in GS as part-time work and earn. Often the part-time GS workers are transferred to the different location from where one T live to where other Ts live, and they are used by the GS director or manager to stalk the T. This is a cycle to prevent the permanent enmity between the given stalkers and T, and lessens the threat for the gang stalkers. But the intervention officers, like the director or manager, involved in controlling the T, and do it as full-time job. This intervention officers, like the director or manager, have 24/7 logging of events of T, plan the daily control of the T, amount of GS, type of GS, amount of do attack, and other forms of control.